On today's episode, I'm speaking with a beautiful spirit by the name of Rocky Singh Kandola. Rocky's here to share his story about his life and his journey from becoming a convicted felon to becoming a successful businessman and what spiritual steps he took to make that change. Hi, guys. Today's episode is really amazing. I'm speaking with a great person. His name is Rocky Singh Kandola. And just to give you guys a brief disclaimer for this episode, I know most of my episodes are really light and airy, and you know, although this will be inspiring as well, but we are gonna touch on some topics that are a little graphic and a little bit more deeper. And so just be prepared that some things might be a little touchy for most, but just be prepared. I just want to give you a disclaimer that some things may be a little graphic, but um, it's definitely for an inspirational reason. So I'm going to shift over to Rocky so he can introduce himself and tell you guys exactly who he is.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me. As you said, my name is Rocky Singh Kandola. I'm 34 years old. I was actually born in the Bronx, New York. My parents are first generation here from India. At a young age, my parents moved us down south to Mississippi, of all places. However, for my father, he was, following a good career opportunity. There were no other cardiologists in the area when he moved down there, so he kind of moved down at the right time and opened up a practice and was able to start. As kids, my brother and I and sister and I, kind of didn't have any Indian families or culture around the rest, like the rest of our cousins did. They were living in New York and we were living in Canada. So we kind of quickly adapted to the lifestyle that was around us, and that was kind of against what Indian parents would want. We were kind of more out and about, wanting to see friends and hang out and do things outside, like play sports and stuff. And our parents mostly wanted us just to stay inside and study and read. And so from a young age, I kind of quickly started butting heads with my father. And as we get more into it later, you'll see kind of the reason why. I was sent away to so many schools and boot camps and institutions and facilities all over the world. Some of them which have been closed now due to severe allegations of child abuse, torture, rape, and all kind of other things of that nature. When I got done with that, I eventually wound up myself in prison for being so rebellious and just hard headed and feeling like the world was against me. And it took quite a bit of time for me to make some shifts in my life and understand the different energies I was putting out and that I was allowing to enter my life until I was able to finally come to the place I am now, which is running a successful company over the last 6 years here in Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, with a storefront showroom as well as e-commerce and business-to-business clients on pretty much each and every continent in the world besides possibly Antarctica, where we do business in. And it was quite a journey trying to create that type of life and lifestyle for myself and getting out of the stuck identity that I was in. But there are definitely some key takeaways and certain things I started implementing in my life in order to get there.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even realize you had lived in Mississippi as well because I knew you mentioned New York. I know that had to be real difficult. I myself had been in Mississippi for well, I was out there for a month and for a movie that I was doing. So, how was the dynamics with that? Especially like, how was the dynamics of being an Indian and even though you weren't born in India, but just being an Indian in Mississippi and also in New York. But how was that? How was it growing up as an Indian child in these areas that's not, and especially with not many other Indians around you? How was like life adapting to the different cultures and how were you received by people? Was that partially to were the things that went on a part of what led you to kind of rebel in your young age and butt heads with your father? Was it a cultural difference?
Yes, definitely. No, all the above. So I'm a pretty observant person, and especially in light of recent events, in the country around us and everything, I've put a lot more hindsight into things. I kind of have a twofold answer to that. So the beginning of my childhood was in Mississippi, and then later my father wanted us to go to private schools, not the public schools that were available in Mississippi. So we kind of moved the family to Alabama, which is a town only 30 minutes away,
Mm-hmm.
and he got a house there. So in Mississippi, growing up, I think in elementary school and a little bit of middle school, I remember being an Indian family. I remember having a distinct feeling of being ashamed of being like who I was and what culture I was, and the fact that I was, brown and I wasn't, like everybody else around me.
Right.
That at the time it felt like they got treated a little bit differently. But
Of course.
at such a young age, with my father being such a prominent person in the town, a small town of only maybe 20,000, 25,000 people back then,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any direct, racism in my face back then.
Okay.
My father has told me stories of the politics and the outright racist comments and treatment he received as he was developing his business down there.
Right.
And I've since talked to him and even spoke with some of the kids, the people that their kids that kind of acted like this towards my father.
Mm-hmm.
But the slap in the face came for me was when I went to a boot camp in Mexico and came back. And when I came back, he moved me to that private school in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I kind of got that slap in the face of like, wait a minute, you are nothing like anyone around you, and you're definitely different.
Right.
I got everything from a lot of verbal abuse to names that I won't even repeat right now
I get
in my
it.
face, and from high school to college, by people such as my peers as well as even my principal and my headmasters of the school.
Wow.
One memory that sticks out really heavily is UMS Wright, this extremely big private school down there.
Mm-hmm.
The headmaster of that school, I was walking down the hallway one day, and um, I remember that as I was walking down the hallway, I had a red and black FUBU sweatshirt on. That was like my
Mm-hmm.
favorite sweatshirt back then. If the brand
Oh,
FUBU.
I had a
Um,
FUBU sweater growing up. I loved FUBU.
yeah, I love that sweatshirt, man. I wore it all the time.
Mhm.
And I was walking through the hallway with it on, and the headmaster turned and stopped and looked at me and said, "Rocky, why are you dressing like a N word, like right to my face in the hallway?"
Wow.
And at that point in time, I think I might have been 13 or 14, and I remember just feeling ashamed again.
Wow.
But it stuck out in my head so much, that later in life, and even then I was very outspoken. Like you couldn't really call me anything. In college, I actually got in a few fights, like big fist fights, where people called me the same words.
Right.
I actually was kicked out of that school that I was talking about just
Mhm.
2 months later for a child calling me a sand N word, and I told
Mm-mm.
him, if you say that again, I said, if you say that again, I'll kill you. And they kicked me out of school for that. A couple of days later.
Wow.
And didn't admonish the other kid at all.
Of
He remained at
course.
that school for
Wow.
I don't know how long. Um, and those are the kind of things that it was kind of growing up down there, and those are just very small things that kind of are prominent in my memory. But
Mhm.
as like many people can relate to, the real hurtful feeling when it comes to this kind of stuff and being looked at differently for your skin color or your sex
Mhm.
or for your sexual preference or whatever it is the small ways, the subtle ways in which society and people treat you or don't invite you to certain
Exactly.
things or
Right.
keep you away from certain crowds and look at you
Exactly.
differently, and that kind of hurts the worst. And I definitely have much like many memories, especially in that next school in Alabama, of feeling like that, growing up for the short time I was there. Even I wasn't there very long, and I felt it very strongly.
Right. No, I can imagine because the reason why a light bulb went off in my head when you said it, not a light bulb, but it I remember when I was in Mississippi and in Alabama, when I was working in Mississippi, I grew up in New York, I grew up in Queens, and racism in New York is totally different. It's never in your face. It's like it's more political. It's very just understood, but never in your face. And when I was in Mississippi, that was the first time that I had experienced racism straight to my face, like, I don't care. Yes, I'm calling you colored. Yes, I'm calling you the N word. And who cares? You take it or leave it. I remember one occasion, our crew, because it was a film crew and we were all coming in from New York and some were coming in from California, and we had just went to a bar later on that night. We was walking around this city that day, and you kind of felt out of place, but you didn't really know why. There was an energy shift. It didn't feel so good, but we was like, all right, well, let's just walk around and be more open. And growing up in New York or growing up in LA, you're more free. We don't have to feel like we're not accepted certain places. Like, I can't go here and I can't go there. We're free to go anywhere. So we went into this bar and we was talking to the bartender, and she told us, "Oh, you can come in." And in so many ways she was saying, "It's okay for you to come because I have a black friend." That should have been our clue that it wasn't the good. That should have been the clue. She said, "My friend Andre, he's," and she was searching for the word of if she should say black, color, African American. And I was like, "It's okay, you can say black." She's like, "Yeah, black, black." So we're like, "Okay." So we went there that night, and oh my God, this man came in. I'm just like making the story shorter, but the man came in. He looked, when he walked through the door, he looked at us and he went to the bar. Then he came back and he said, he stood next to me and was looking at our table, and he said, "Hmm, I've never seen this many coloreds in here before. This is 2009. I would have thought this was like the 60s or the 50s or something. This is 2009 when he said this." And I'm like, wow. And my friends at the table looking at him, and he said, "Yeah, the owner wouldn't be happy about this." He said, "We still got hangings and lynchings and burning going on around here." Wow, really? Okay, sir. But he said it so nonchalantly, like this wasn't a problem. And he sat down with us to try to have a drink and have further conversations. So I'm like, wow, okay, sir. Like, so I can only imagine how, good Lord, what you went through.
Yeah, it's quite crazy. It's unfortunate. I mean, even hopefully, I mean, I don't really go back that area much anymore at all.
Mhm.
And honestly, now I don't let myself kind of be around those energies or put myself around. I'm not sure if it's more of a preventive thing or more of like I just don't allow that to be around me. And I don't have it around me anymore. But
Mhm.
growing up, I mean, I can imagine. I can when you said a bar in Mississippi, I literally flash back to 10
Right.
different places, like that
Right.
I've been to, and I've been like, wait a minute, I am in the wrong place right now.
Yes,
Even from high
yes.
school house parties, I remember in the Kill. It's called KILN, the Kill, Mississippi.
Mhm.
And I remember I brought a friend of me, my best friend at that time, me, a black kid named Kevin, and we always hung out. And I was at a boarding school there, and I brought him to the party with me, and we're like hanging out for a little while. And about 30 minutes after being there was a small little disagreement or argument. And I just remember when we were leaving, I looked back, and it looked like a mob like heading towards us. Like they actually had the
Wow.
fire sticks because like that was an outside
Wow.
party,
Oh
and they
God.
were all just like chasing after us, like walking after us, and we just had to get him. And he wanted to go back and fight, and I was like, bro, there's
No.
really not too much we can do. There's about 30 or 40 of them, and it's
Right,
just
it's
me and
2
you,
of
So like,
us.
you
Right.
got to get out of here. Like we don't have weapons or anything. We're
Right.
15, 16 years old.
Right,
It's
exactly.
time to go. And
Exactly.
he was
No.
actually upset with me for bringing him there, and I was just like, I didn't. I mean, these people I went to high school with. I didn't
Right.
expect it to be like this. And honestly, when we started talking, I was like, yeah, no, I guess I should have known better. I don't fit in there. And I received a lot of comments towards me, even in school there. But I would always, like I said, at this point in my life, I think I was 16 or closer to 17 maybe, and I was one of those kids that would definitely fight you and definitely get physical if you were to say something like that to me.
Right.
But once again, there's nothing you can do, and there's 20 or 30 people at the
Right, not
front
at
yard at
all.
nighttime outside in front of
Yeah, no, the best bet is to just walk away. Like, just get out of there as safe as possible. Like, every fight is not a fight. So, you know, you rather just live to to see the next day. So can you tell me about so why were you going to boarding schools and military schools? What happened? What caused that to start happening? Was that just a choice of by your parents just Was it because of the behavioral issues, or they just felt it would be better, you would get better education if you went to boarding schools and military schools and things like that? What why did you go to these schools?
So all of the above besides education. I was one of those kids, like I was always in different classes. I never really study. I was always, doing very, very well in classes and in college and everything. It was more of a behavioral thing. My parents really wanted me to stay home and not be out and about, and I was wanting to go see friends, to hang out with the girls next door and things like that. And I also, like I said, I'm not quiet. I talk back quite a bit.
Mhm.
And that was kind of a habit I kept until quite a bit, recently in life.
Mhm.
But the first time my dad sent me to India, he told me it was for like a cultural experience.
Mhm.
Later on in life, I kind of found out that in reality they just couldn't really handle me, and
Mm.
they needed to like to get away and wanted me to kind of go to India and experience it as well. So India wasn't really bad. It was I was living alone out there. Had a family nearby, and I would just kind of travel the country. I think I was around 11 years old, and I would play tennis tournaments, and eventually came back home. By the time I came back home, my father had started teaching me to drive a little bit. I was around
Mm.
12, and
Oh.
I was a big 12-year-old, so pretty big. But eventually I started sneaking his car out at nighttime. I would put it in neutral and push it down the driveway
Uh-oh.
and go to Taco Bell. Yeah. And one night I was going to see a girl in a town next over, and on the way back we got pulled over.
Oh,
And the
God.
next day I was supposed to be going to tennis camp, and instead, my father had looked up these schools on the internet, which actually Paris Hilton recently brought light on, which is with her documentary "This Is Me."
Mhm.
And so I was sent to the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs,
Okay.
namely Casa by the Sea in Rosarito, Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Um, and this kind of schools, you get there and you go through one door and you never see the other side of that door ever again,
Wow.
until you leave. Your clothes are stripped off. You don't have to. All your items are taken. Your hair is shaved.
What?
Um, the voice changes. You start getting mentally and verbally abused from the first second you're there. The
Wow.
first 10 days you're sleeping on the floor on a little mattress.
What?
They wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go outside in the rain and just stand there and stare at the person's head behind you. If you look out of line, you get in trouble. Their punishment system is very rigid, very structured. If you talk out of turn, or look out of line, or look out a window, or do anything, literally anything, from standing up and sitting down without permission, you go to this place called worksheets, where you sit on the corner 4 inches of the bench and listen to audio tapes and take notes on the audio tapes for 4 to 8 hours at a
Wow.
time. And from there, I remember one time I was in there actually, and I was sick and I was crying, and I was begging the dorm father, which is we call the people that are managing the families, which is the people, the brothers
Mhm.
around us, our fathers, and I was asking him, I'm sick, can I see the nurse? Maybe go to the infirmary, please help me. And eventually he got on the radio, and I thought, finally I'm going to be saved. I'm going to be, taken care of medically. And instead, I found myself being picked up from my right shoulder and tossed into the wall behind me, full speed ahead
Wow.
by a grown man, 300 pounds, 6 foot tall guy
Wow.
named Jason Phillinson. And he kicked me down the hallway. I remember sliding on my butt and my hands and my feet
Oh
to get
my
away from him, and
God.
crying, to eventually where he put me in the restraint and restriction room, where they put you
What?
on your stomach, force your chin into the ground, have someone sit on top of you, and then tie your hands and your feet
Oh
behind your back.
my God.
Yeah, and that's where you spend the next couple of days. I'm not
Couple
sure how
of
long it was because
days?
it was a long time ago.
Oh.
But yeah, they just let you have one hand free, I think twice a day, to drink orange juice and have rice. And you spend, I don't know, like I said, I don't remember how much time it was. It felt like forever as a kid. But they different kids have different times they stay in there. And, at this point, I was only 12, so I was that kind of scared me enough to
Wow.
realize that I don't need to go back to restraint and restrict. And I went to worksheets plenty of times for small infractions. It's almost impossible to not break their rule book code. And I have actually had their rule book from groups of us that have found each other. We call each other survivors on Facebook.
Wow. I hope
And
this place
yeah.
is closed down. This is horrible. That's torture.
Well, what's the worst about it is that these schools are actually in operation still. They just are under different names and different management and different ownership.
Wow.
And there's one about 30 minutes away from the school I went to in Mexico. There's various ones around the country as well as outside of the country. And they're still in operation. That's kind of why Paris Hilton did a protest a couple weeks ago at a school in Utah called
Mm,
Provo Canyon, and they were all out there. And it's not the same exact as the Worldwide Association of Specialty Program Schools, but
mhm.
their program is very similar. The brainwashing, the abuse, the allegations of sexual abuse and physical abuse are still,
Wow.
very prevalent there as well.
Oh my God, that is a complete nightmare. So when you got home from this, did you tell your parents and what happened? Did they try to take actions? Did they believe you? Like, how was that conversation when you got home, or were you scared? Did they tell you not to tell people what went on? Because I know, coming from an abusive childhood, I know I was always told not to tell anybody what was happening. So were you guys coached to not reveal what was going on? Could you tell these things to your parents afterwards?
So while we were there, we were only allowed to write one letter a week, no phone calls, and that one letter was very heavily edited. On top of
Mm.
that, you have to remember these are for-profit businesses that lobby and make donations to political parties and campaigns,
Wow.
frequently to keep the laws that they want in place in
Wow.
order to do what they do. So the level of manipulation they play on not only the kids but the parents was huge. So they already
Wow.
told our parents, that we're going to manipulate them, that we're going to lie to them, that we're going to tell them this and that. And when I got out, I remember telling my parents about Jason Phillinson, what he did to me. I remember telling them about the sexual, abuse that I faced there and everything. And
Wow.
I remember that they kind of looked at me, in a little bit of the disbelief and didn't really believe it. And I remember
Wow.
quickly just letting go of the thought of trying to explain it anymore.
Right,
And I was just
right.
that's kind of developed a little bit more of my rebellious nature. I was like, like I went through this, I'm out of it. No reason to think about it. I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do now because,
Exactly.
I have a chip on my shoulder. This happened to me and it could happen again. And I
Wow.
spent my childhood, 11 to 17, always being worried of getting sent away again.
Oh
And I mean,
my
I kind of made
God.
that happen in a certain sense because I was sent to, you know, two different military schools, a Catholic boarding school, and the same exact program once again when I was 17 in a
Oh
different location.
God.
Yeah. So yeah, it was tough. My parents didn't do it, knowingly that this was happening.
Right, because
I
they
don't
were
I
being
don't believe any of the
manipulated as
parents did.
well. Right. They were being manipulated as well. And they're
Exactly.
just thinking, okay, well, he's a rebellious child. He's getting into trouble. He just doesn't want to go there. So, he's making this stuff up. Oh, God. So, how long were you, the first time when you were 12, how long were you at this facility? Was it months,
So
weeks?
it was months. So the kind of pattern of my life was I was sent away for 6 to 9 months and home for 6 to 9 months from the entire
Oh,
entire age of 11 to just till I
wow.
turned 18.
Wow. I mean, it's no wonder that you would get into trouble. So, I mean, like, these environments actually made it worse. So, they didn't help, they made it worse. And then it ruined your trust in adults, it ruined your trust in authority, it just ruined your trust, period, and the safe of being kept safe. Wow. Oh my God.
Exactly. The trust is the biggest thing. And I think you hit the nail on the head because, like, for me,
Yeah,
trust is always it's huge as an adult to even trust anything or anybody, and especially authority
exactly.
figures and adult figures.
Right.
Something I've had to struggle with and kind of learn, that I can overcome this and get to a point where I can not only trust those people but myself if I do certain things and if I live my life a certain way. But it's been a struggle, definitely, even up until the age I am now.
Right. So at what age was it when you um went to prison, and how did that happen? Was that still um did was this something totally different, or was it something you were just doing to cope? Like, what happened with that when you had to go to prison?
So, after the school in Mexico, I went to a couple of various schools, and then until I wound up, getting quote unquote kidnapped in the middle of the night, with my ankles cuffed already, my feet cuffed, and escorted by two tall men to the same program facility
Wow.
on the border of Canada and New York, ran by the same guy, Jason Phillinson.
Wow.
Um, yeah, that was pretty traumatic just seeing that guy again. But
Oh,
by the time I made it out of that school, I was 17. I graduated high school with a fake diploma because that school later on was told to not be credible and had fake diplomas they were giving out.
wow.
It was called Academy at Ivy Ridge in New York. But I literally, I was so rebellious and so against authority. I was out in
Mhm,
the world. I was a free. I was a man in my opinion, in my head, and no one could
mhm.
tell me anything. So
Right.
I quickly dove into a lifestyle of just parties, drugs, doing drugs, selling drugs, women, and that was I only had a short run. I think from 18 until I caught my charges for distribution of controlled substances when I was
Mm,
around, I think probably 22, 21, 22, 23 at the oldest.
okay.
And then I got put in the system, and eventually I ended up getting a sentence of 10 years, split to serve three
Wow.
years. The 3 years are mandatory on the front end, and I think the next 7 years or so of my life was a combination of rehab, jail, prison, and house arrest and probation and parole finally. And yeah, I mean, honestly, by this time in my life, I was used to the
Right.
institutionalized. Prison was almost fun to me. It sucks. Prison has its own horror stories and
Because it's all you
craziness.
know. It,
Exactly. It's
it
just, I knew it. I knew how to get into an institution and system and kind of work it and do what I needed to do to get
mm,
past it at that point. Um, and those kind of things don't change me. I'm not one you can change by hurting or hitting or
mhm.
scaring. So even in prison, I was still selling a substance called spice, which was fake marijuana in there and sending money back home and things like that. And
Right.
after getting out, I was kind of jumping back in the same lifestyle until kind of one of those first turning points came in my life. But that came on my own will. But it came, I like to say, from like a higher power energy that was
Mhm.
outside of me
Right.
because otherwise I could have possibly continued that same run. I was very secure with the street credibility and the identity
Mhm.
that I had created in the society had put on me as a dope boy, party animal, playboy. I was
Right.
comfortable with that. That's who I thought I was at that point in time in my life.
Right. I was going to ask you that because with all of this trauma, the fact that we're sitting here having a conversation and you got past that and you're not a drug addict and not an alcoholic, not dead, due to your own hand because of so much trauma. And so, like, that breaks the mind. So that's definitely, was going to be my next question. How did you even mentally? And then there was, you experienced a beating as well. Was that in prison or was that after?
Oh yeah, so so I forgot that was actually before prison.
Wow.
And so I was downtown for an opera for a music project for school, and was with a girlfriend at the time, and we left the opera, went to a bar, and in that bar, I was eventually picked up and thrown into a concrete sidewalk where my
Ooh.
entire jaw was fractured, punitive fractures on both sides, with over 20 teeth damaged and missing.
Ugh.
And I was conscious still, but I don't remember any of it afterwards. After being hit that hard, that I think at least 10, 15 major surgeries stemmed from that, where they had to take bone out of my head
Ugh.
and put it into my jaw in order to give me my teeth back. And the crazy part was that I actually went to prison in the middle of all that
What?
physical damage to my mouth. Yeah, I had failed a lot of drug. They were trying to give me like different programs of house arrest,
Mhm.
rehab, jail, this and that. And I was kind of just being rebellious. Like, no, I'm not gonna. I haven't been convicted yet. I'm not gonna just quit. Smoking weed. I'm gonna smoke as much weed as I want to.
Mhm.
And I kept doing it. And eventually, they said, no, okay, you know what? We're sending you to prison. And in prison, I was actually looking at my journals today and all the paperwork I have. I was writing the wardens every day, and I was saying, I have metal in my mouth. I need help. I need medical attention. And
Right.
they wouldn't give it to me. And finally, one day, a piece of metal mesh popped out from where the bone implant was on my jaw. It popped out in my mouth and was bleeding, and they had to rush me to the hospital and do emergency medical surgery on me. Where finally I was taken care of and came back, to prison after that, and I still stayed in prison for a good, I think, 9 months after that surgery as well.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, that was quite a bad period. I held a lot of hate in my heart for that whole situation. Just the way the lawyers treated me, the way the judges treated me, like I was like the criminal in this situation. So yeah, one of the the toughest times and what kind of put the most hate in my heart around that time was just the way the lawyers and the judges, involved in this case treated me, like basically like I was a criminal, like I was the wrongdoer.
And
The
you got
DA of the
victimized a
town
second
actually.
time.
Sorry.
I was just saying you got victimized a second time. I hate when they victimize the victim, that's especially just, based on your past, like you're the victim presently. Don't make me the victim. Don't make me the villain. I mean, and but you
Yes.
became victimized again.
Yeah, that was really so frustrating. I remember even during the depositions and stuff, the way these guys were talking to me, I just felt so uncomfortable, and it was such a horrible feeling. I literally like I would like literally just do the exact thing. Like I would just go in my car, just go in a corner, and just like cry and like try to pull my hair, and just like I had a bad habit, especially then, of like wanting to hurt myself, versus
Hmm.
lash out or hurt anybody else. I've
I
never been
get
like
it.
a
Hmm.
violent type unless violence was brought upon me.
Right.
And just the DA even, like I was saying, told my father that your son is a criminal.
Mm.
He wasn't supposed to be there, so we're not pressing charges against these guys that did that to him.
What?
Yeah, and that's it was crazy. I mean, the story ends up being good because hey, I got my teeth back, I got my smile back, and
Right.
my father sued them civilly, and the money that he sued them with that we won the case on in civil court, I used that money to start my now current business.
Wow.
Um, so it's a horrible story, and it was really tough back then. It was really really painful and hurtful, but it ended up being all part of the journey and part of who I am, and bringing
Mm.
me to where I am now.
So what steps did you take to like the spiritual shift when it like hit you, that light bulb went off and said, okay, you know what? I need to make better choices. I need to change my life, or my past doesn't define who I am, and finding a higher you. Just what was that process like? What did you take any steps? Did you do like meditation? Did you, you know, find like what was it? Was there a mentor in your life? What happened? Like what caused that shift? I mean, I can see what would cause that shift of all that drama and trauma that was going on. But I know, like, for myself, it's like one defining moment where it's like the curtains are lifted and you see, like, wow, okay. So, what was that for you?
Yeah, so all of the above, and it happened kind of in three parts. I had like three kind of shifts. The first one was, when I first got out of prison. As I told you before, I kind of dove back into the lifestyle. I remember I was looking at my cards right now, my all my journal stuff, and the night I got out, I have a card from a local strip club in Mobile, Alabama, where it's like
Mhm.
heavy drugs and everything goes on there. And that was like my first day out, and so I dove right back into it, and I was doing the same thing, much care for a manner, not wanting to get in trouble, and kind of back in my identity. I had a circle I was selling with. I had a circle of party friends. I had girlfriends and this and that. And eventually, one day, my dad, who I always butted head with, said, "Hey, you're not living at home anymore. You're not really asking us for money much anymore. Maybe you should just get out of town. Maybe you should go somewhere and leave things behind." And obviously, it was triggering for me because I'd been sent around my whole life.
Mhm.
Um, but the way he said it kind of let me think about it. It was November 4th, I believe, 2011, maybe.
Mhm.
And I thought about it for one night. And that's why I said earlier, I kind of like to say, I don't even know if I made the decision. It was kind of like a higher power,
Mhm.
a different energy that just kind of said, Rocky, try this. Let's see what else life has to offer. Let's
Right.
leave everything else behind from the identity that you created and and let's go try something else.
Right.
So I went to India and I started living, a clean lifestyle. I was living on a farm, working there for a couple months,
Mhm.
until eventually I met my now ex-wife, and started the hair company there. And I started, working on it there. I took that one-page business plan that I had written in prison and
Mm.
actually implemented it and actually started working on it. And that was 7 years ago, and it's been definitely an up and down journey with blood, sweat, and tears, all of the above combined
Mhm.
into it.
Right.
But my second shift kind of came in the middle of that when my ex and I originally broke up. I was doing good. I told myself I would never go back to selling drugs again, and I didn't.
Mhm.
Um, but the business wasn't doing good, really that good enough to keep me, you know, stable. I was still, not able to get housing because of my background, because of my work history.
Oh man.
Things were still very tough. I was still, relying on some help here and there from my father as well.
Mhm.
And I had a chance and a choice to either give and go back home because I was living with her family in LA,
Mhm.
or to live in a minivan and be homeless for a while and see what I could make happen in Los Angeles. And obviously I chose the latter, and it was tough. I even kind of got back into a little bit of doing a little bit of drugs for a time. I was drinking a lot, winding up in random clubs in Hollywood, But during the days, I was answering phone calls and driving all around the city with a suitcase and a backpack,
Mhm.
and meeting
Right.
clients and going to salons and just being real open and honest with people, saying, "Hey, I have a good product. I'm going to work my ass off for you here. I'm in LA. I'll come to you whenever you want to, any time of the day or night. I want to work." And eventually, one of my friends came to stay with me, and I had gotten a place downtown LA, a small studio that allowed me to live there without doing a background check after I saw a certain amount of money on
Mhm.
my bank account, which I had to take a loan out for and save up for to have that amount in there.
Mhm.
And I think May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, I can't remember what year it was now, it was at least 4 or 5 years ago, 4 years ago, was kind of like the second shift when I started a clean lifestyle. I went raw vegan for a couple weeks,
Mhm.
totally quit eating meat. I haven't gotten back into eating meat since then. I let go of music, of TV shows, of movies. I quit smoking weed back then for a little while. I started
Mhm.
listening to podcasts, to YouTube videos such as Robin Sharma,
Mhm.
Ralph Smart, Wayne Dyer, Tony
Oh, I
Robbins,
love
just
Wayne
all the
Dyer.
yeah,
Love
Wayne Dyer. Like
Wayne.
a lot of those people helped me out in a lot of tough times. Just
Yeah.
in my life. And back when he said whether I find a mentor, I wanted a mentor. I couldn't
Mhm.
find one in my life, and those became my mentors. Those
Yeah,
books, those podcasts,
definitely.
and those YouTube tapes.
Yeah, definitely. Wayne Dyer was definitely a mentor for me too, especially with the whole he's great at putting things into perspective and changing the way you look at situations. So definitely like what you were going through at that time, I can see how Wayne would be key for you at that moment because his whole viewing of being, present and just per perceiving things is like perfect for a person that's really going through some things and just being able to find the positive in any situation. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, like
No, no,
I
no.
love
That's
him.
very it's very true. I'm blessed to have come across his content, and
Mhm.
really, really, truly wish that he was still here with us, so I could
Me
possibly go to one
too.
of his shows or talks. That would
Me
be
too.
amazing.
Another amazing person is Esther Hicks. She's amazing
Yes,
too. I love her and Abraham Hicks. That whole
Abraham Hicks as well. Yep.
yes, that whole franchise is amazing. But yeah, keep going. I'm
Definitely.
sorry. So your friend came to stay at the studio.
Well, yeah, so I implemented those things, in combination with, the friend Sean. He came to stay with me for a while, and he's always been like a shining light, a good friend of my life, and never, not the type of person to push anything on you or try to make you live a certain way. He just
Mhm.
kind of came and lived around me like that, and introduced me to these communities in Los Angeles,
Mm.
of yoga and meditation, because
Wow.
I had started getting in the wrong crowds in LA as well. I got myself
Mhm.
into some funny situations with some people, financially and business wise. And I was like, man, Rocky, you're going back the same direction again in a different city. So I had to once again, like I went to India, cut myself off from all them and stop talking to them and ignore
Mhm.
them, and I did. And I was alone in a big city trying to make it, and didn't have any friends. All my friends were far away from LA, my family as well. So he introduced me to these communities, like these great communities of yoga, meditation, of breath work, and I started
Mhm.
diving into those. I started going to yoga practice, meditations, um, groups of people that were at high conscious, high vibe places, such as
Mhm.
Earth Cafe, Cafe Gratitude, and putting myself around these people in these places, and I still felt out of place, I guess, for back for a better term. I was like looking at these people around me and seeing, how they smiled all day and how they were happy with what they had, whether they had a lot or whether they had a little.
Right.
And I was wondering, I was like, can I ever get myself there? And honestly, at that point, I really couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I was just like, I know this is better than what I was doing, so I'm gonna stick with it.
Right.
And eventually, it all kind of started to seep in. This was 4 years ago. Most recently, the last shift I made was just months ago, to when I was still living in a loft downtown LA with all of the material possessions in the world that someone could want. A business that was doing good at this point,
Mhm.
but I still wasn't happy. I was
Mm. Right.
still smoking weed. Just in February this year when I quit on my birthday.
Mhm.
I went to Bali, Indonesia, in February,
Oh
and
my god.
what yeah, and it was beautiful. It was life changing for me, and I was actually Sean, my friend from before, he met me there as well, and I let go of that weed lifestyle. And
Mhm.
I remember before I quit, I was sitting at home one day and I was just like shaking my head. And I was like, "Man, Rocky, like, what are you gonna do if you quit smoking weed? Like, you're not gonna want to play your games. You're not gonna have fun in life, and it's gonna be horrible, man. Like, what I'm
Right.
gonna do with myself." And I
Right.
mean, now looking back and like I remember the exact time when I was rolling that last blunt and thinking about it, I can actually laugh at myself.
Right.
Finally, but yeah, I mean that shift came this year, and I think everything that's happened in the world this year has kind of
Mm.
been for the personal reason for me. It needed to happen for me. It happened all for
Oh
a
my
reason, and
God. I
it's
I
helped me
totally
grow.
believe that. I totally believe, and it's so funny because it's like a shift can happen and things can, like, when you have that spiritual shift and that mental shift, it can just be within a couple of months and your life just, it's like a light goes off and it's just like where it used to seem like it was gloomy outside, now it seems like it's so sunny, the birds are
Yeah,
chirping, the animals are dancing around you, and it's like, wow. Like,
exactly.
who took the cloud from around me? And what you said made a lot of sense to me, because it resonated with my own experience, how you can be in a place and think that you have everything and don't, like when I was styling, I'm a celebrity wardrobe stylist, and I'm flying to London for work, and I'm working with huge brands like Tom Ford and Gucci and all these big brands that I'm working for, and I'm backstage at all these amazing shows, and you know, riding around with celebrities, going to parties and having drinking wine and being in limos, not limos, but being in fancy cars and just being in these amazing environments, and go home and be so sad and broken, just be so unhappy. And then even in another shift in my um work, have all the money that I need and still not be happy. And that's when I realized that, things, situations don't make you happy. And that's when I started my shift of we have to choose to be happy and create our own happiness. But you do need that silence and that stillness, and you have to make these changes. It's like it's such an investment in your life to sit back and take the time to disconnect from the rest of the world and look at yourself and look at the habits that you're recreating, and realize, okay, the end result, I did this, and where did it lead me? I did that, and where did it end me? So what is it to lose if I don't do any of that? I'll still either still feel sucky or I could feel better, but you just gamble and take the chance. So I love that, you said, like, even in this this great time, I still not happy, so I need to find my happiness. Well, I need to find my peace. Bali is so on my list of places to go. I've always heard that it's so beautiful and so spiritual, and so many people have had leaps and bounds of growth after they go to Bali. I went to Thailand for a month, and I was supposed to go to Bali as well while I was out there. I'm so mad that I didn't go, but that's definitely on my on my list of places to go. Definitely. So tell me a little bit more about your hair business and your showroom, and how all of that is going and like what you sell and how can we get it and what's going on with that? The new Rocky, the new and improved Rocky. Now I want
Yeah,
to sing the
definitely. So
theme song. Dun, 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 dun.
cue the music.
Yes.
Definitely. So, as I said, like, so I got that showroom downtown LA, and that was actually the last part of my shift when I finally just a couple
Mhm.
months ago let go of that place where all the material stuff was.
Right.
I thought I had all I needed, and I thought that was my new identity. That this you have a place downtown next to the Staples Center. You're the
Mhm.
best. You're the coolest. You're doing this and that. Great. And I
Mhm.
let go of all that. I shut that showroom down. Gave away all my material items, my clothes, my shoes, my kitchen stuff, my bedding, my furniture, my
Mm.
electronics. I gave it all to people near me and to the homeless people.
Mm.
And I was scared because I'm still a convicted felon. I was worried about being able to get rent in another place.
Mhm.
But it worked out. I got a showroom here in Beverly Hills, where business has literally increased tenfold since we moved here.
Wow.
It's a much better energy, much better environment for all of our clients.
Love it.
And I mainly do B2B work, so I have a lot of salon owners, stylists,
Okay.
distributors, people coming in, to visit me in that sense and to check out product. You can come see us directly at our showroom in Beverly Hills.
Mhm.
We are open by appointment only, but we generally have appointments available all throughout the week except for Sunday.
Okay.
On top of that, we do ship worldwide. Our website is hairmaidenindia.com, and that's Maiden spelled like her mother's maiden name, so hair, Maiden,
Mm.
India.com. Like I said, we have the showroom as well, then you can come visit. I myself am available on the phone to help business owners, anyone that needs to start a business or have questions about it. My direct phone number is 228-596-5678, and I actually do answer the phone myself. I don't have robots or others answering.
I love talking to people. I hate talking to robots. I know the customer service
Yes,
people hear me screaming at the recording, like, "Give me a person!" I know, like they're like, "I don't want to answer this call because this lady is
exactly.
screaming at this computer." So,
Exactly. And I have a tight knit small team, and they've all been with me for quite a while. And, even Miranda, my chief of staff, she's known me since I was in college.
mhm.
So they're all very aligned with who I
Wow,
am, what I've done in my past, and
love
they know
it.
me, from a personal sense, and
Right.
and help me run this business in that way as well. So yeah, I mean, my personal blog is just rockycandola.com.
Okay.
That's my first name and last name, Rocky Kandola, and you can definitely check out my other businesses that I'm involved in, from my CBDT company to my vacation rental company there, as
Wow.
well as my blog, detailing a lot of my past history of my life and the journey that it kind of took to go from where I was to where I am now.
Right. I love it, and I feel like all of our story is for the next person. I feel like the universe doesn't put us through anything that we can't make it through, and then when we go through it, it's just building us to be our greatest self, building us to be who we are, because for you to survive all of that, even starting at the age of 11 and 12, it's definitely a testament that you are here for something way bigger, something way huger than this. Like this is like just a number of so many shifts that I feel that you're here for because, you know, it's just I feel like this is so inspiring for so many people on so many levels because you can be a convicted felon, you could go through all these different things, but at the core, your higher self has some type of thing for you to do along your journey, along your path. And these all of these things were just teachers for so many other people that you're going to touch that's going to be inspired. And I always say this, like, for people who have just gotten out of prison, because the system makes it so hard for you to be successful after prison. It's basically like it's lined up for you to continue to fail, continue to stay in jail, because everywhere you go, you can't get a job, can't get an apartment, can't get a loan, can't, that there's so many can't. How do you expect the person to fly right when you shut every option down for them? So I feel like being an entrepreneur is a great segue for a person who has lived your type of life or who's living your type of life now and want to make a change, like going into business for yourself. I mean, if you can go out there and sell drugs, that means you have a salesman mentality. So going
Hmm.
into a
Agreed,
business.
100%.
So, I like really, really appreciate your story and you sharing these things with us. And, it takes a lot of courage to share your story because, people judge and people, they have a perception of who you are based on your past. And no, you're not that. You're not a criminal. You're not this delinquent child. You are Rocky Singh Kandola, who is here for a higher purpose, who's about to inspire so many other people to live their greatest self and sell them some beautiful hair so they can look fabulous. So I'm really, really appreciative of you taking out the time to speak with me and to speak with my listeners. And I hope someone comes across this. I'm sure the universe will align someone who really, really needs to hear this. And I'm really glad that you were able to share this with us. And thank you for allowing me to dig into your life and be nosy.
No worries, definitely. I appreciate you having me. It's actually part of my healing process and journey as well. So,
Yeah.
as much as anyone out there that can appreciate it, I appreciate this, you, and the entirety of it all as well.
Okay. Thank you. And that's it, guys. So all the information for Rocky, you heard it, and I will also put it on my Instagram and anywhere else that I post this podcast. You'll have the links to look into Rocky's blog and look at his businesses and get in touch. Call the number. You get to speak to Rocky because he answers his own calls. All right.